Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my jealous entitled uncle tried to steal my inheritance by creating a fake will and robbing us. Here is what happened. Don't forget to check out my membership program by clicking the join button to get access to exclusive videos. This might only be visible in a browser or on the desktop. And the first one starts like this. Inheriting a large amount of money from a deceased relative can be quite daunting. Throw in a crazy uncle to the mix and it is even more daunting. Now, to really understand this story and where I am coming from, I have to tell you about my crazy family dynamic. Or maybe it's normal. Who knows anymore? So, my grandfather has 3 children. My dad, my aunt and my uncle. My dad is the only one with kids. My aunt is actually just 6 years older than me and my sister, and my uncle is actually insane. He struggled a lot with addiction through his life, and although he is clean for the most part, he was smoking weed at this time. Which is funny to me, because isn't weed supposed to calm you down? I think the chemistry and wiring in his brain is just not there. I don't mean to offend anyone that has struggled through addiction, but please understand, even without the addiction, my uncle was just not known to be a good person at all. My grandpa was a very smart businessman and investor. With all of his properties and monetary wealth combined, he was worth millions. Originally, in his will, he was leaving most of his wealth to his wife, but unfortunately, she passed away a few months before he did. When my grandpa died, my aunt and dad both inherited properties from him. My sister and I intermitted one of his biggest properties and part of the money that was originally supposed to get. Basically, all of us got something except my uncle. While a part of me did feel bad for him, I completely understood my grandpa's choice. My uncle was known to steal for drug money, and even when he was sober, he would steal stuff to pawn for rent money due to poor money management. At the time, I was in my mid-20s and my sister was in her early 20s, but even then, both of us were more responsible than he was. It sucks when you have to basically kick your own family member to the curb, but I know as soon as he found out how much everyone had inherited, that all hell would break loose. And well, I was right. My uncle was pissed when he found out that my dad and sister were the recipients of many of my grandfather's properties. He was even more pissed when he found out that my sister and I had inherited a house and a lot of money from my grandpa. So much apparently that he made a fake will and trust and brought us to court over it. I gotta give it to him, I genuinely did not think that he was that smart. I mean, he was not smart because the fake will that he had created did not even make sense. He forgot to list several of my grandfather's properties on it, and the court was able to prove that the documents were fake. He basically ended up screwing himself over. Oh, and because he technically forges my grandfather's signature, he ended up getting charged with forging legal documents. He was trying to take money and valuable assets from us, but ended up screwing himself because he had to pay a fine of $10,000. I guess he did not think about that when he faked all the documents for a will that had already been taken care of. I would like to mention that yes, living in this beautiful house and not having to worry about paying bills because we had enough inheritance was nice. But at the end of the day, I really just wanted to honor my grandfather's legacy. For example, all of his properties were absolutely beautiful and well taken care of. My sister and I actually set aside part of our inheritance money to keep our new house in the condition that my grandpa left it in and to help take care of it. I knew that if my uncle got his hands on anything that was my grandpa's, whether it was a leather watch or a house, that he would just absolutely trash it. That would not just hurt my sister and I, but I know it would absolutely destroy my dad and my aunt. It would be like he was trashing my grandfather, basically. We thought that after the $10,000 fine he had to pay, that he would back off from us. But I guess we should have the mindset that now that he needs money more than ever, he will probably do whatever it takes to get his hands on some money. In the house that my sister and I now shared, her room was on the bottom floor and mine was on the second floor. One night, a few months after the whole court and fake will situation, I woke up to hearing a girl screaming at the top of her lungs. At first I honestly thought I was dreaming or waking up from a dream. Then I realized that it was my sister. I have never run down a flight of stairs so fast before. And when I got downstairs, I was shocked at what I saw. My sister was backed into a corner and there was a man with a ski mask on with a gun in his hand. Now, my sister was a pretty petite girl and this guy was tall. My uncle was tall too. Do you see where I am going with this? I honestly didn't know too much about self-defense or anything like that, but I was able to tackle the guy down and get the gun out of his hand. At this time, my sister was already calling 911 and I was able to take the mask off the guy's face. And yep, it was my uncle. Apparently, he was trying to break in and find a stash of money sitting around, but my sister woke up because she heard some funny noises coming from the kitchen and living room. If you are gonna try and rob someone, shouldn't you at least have a solid plan? My sister and I were smart enough to not keep stashes of money just laying around the house. Our money was either in savings accounts or hidden somewhere very safe. The police arrive at the house and while my sister is speaking to them, I call my dad to let him know what was happening. By now it was probably like 5 AM in the morning and I was exhausted. We pressed charges on my uncle and he ended up getting a 5-year prison sentence with 3 years of probation for a second-degree robbery. Like I said, it really sucks when you have to kick family to the curb, but it just seems that some people cannot get their lives together no matter what. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, these inheritance family drama stories I always find to be super sad. And inheritance in general seems to be a really huge topic of conflict. Maybe if it ever comes to me inheriting something, I would just say no interest and give it to my siblings. Who knows? Anyway, the next one is titled Getting Revenge on a Stupid Roommate. This happened pretty recently. I, 26 male, just moved into a place with a friend turned roommate. His name is Kyle, 29 male. I had finally saved up enough to move out to my own place and Kyle's lease was going to be up soon at his current apartment, so we agreed to move in together. After a few months of looking for a place we could afford, we found a decent duplex. Now, I moved in a couple of weeks before he did since I had less stuff to move and he still had another month on his lease to fulfill. I got most of my stuff in to the point where I could comfortably live in it, but I still had stuff to move, even now I do, but that's not important. Kyle had a lot more to move, which makes sense as he was also bringing his cat. His cats lived in an apartment with Kyle all her life, so moving into a place with access to the outdoors on top of a completely new town must have been quite a shock for her. The weekend they moved in, we spent a good few hours moving in a lot of the big stuff, furniture, bed, electronics, etc., while I was keeping a very close eye on the cat since I was worried she would try to escape somehow. Kyle reassured me that she would be fine since she's never tried to run on him. Having lived with a couple of cats prior to moving, cats which love to be outside, I was a little skeptical, but I figured he knows his cat better than I do, so I just went with it. After helping him move in his first couple of waves of stuff, I had to go visit my mom and sister for a while, since I was helping them with some other stuff. About an hour later, I get a call from Kyle, who sounds absolutely hysterical on the phone, saying that the cat got out. I was surprised and also confused because he was pretty adamant about how good she was about that. He followed it up with, "Now, I don't want to point fingers because that won't solve anything, but there is a possibility that you might have left the door open." I know he was trying really hard not to use the words, "You did it!" but that hurt nonetheless. Because 1, I left before him and his friends were done moving stuff in. 2nd, he had no concrete proof that I was the one who did it, or even any reason to suspect that I would have been the one to do it. Number 3, he said he never saw the cat leave, and 4, out of everyone there, I was the most cautious about her leaving, even suggesting locking her in a bedroom for a while until we were done moving stuff in. So after hearing him understandably wail on the phone for 10 minutes, he asked me to print some flyers for a lost cat. I did not have any way of doing it at that moment, so I was going to wait until I got back home. The whole time I tried calling him to tell him to leave her litter box outside, leave some food outside, etc. And when I got home, I see at least 8 different pieces of plastic covered with wet cat food in front of the house, plus her litter box on the steps, and still no sign of her. I know that the cat needed some time to adjust to a new neighborhood and environment, but I thought that was a little odd. A minute later, I was bringing in some stuff I got from my mom's place to the basement. For some reason, I remembered that my cats used to love to hide in the strangest places in the basement, and I would always spend a good hour or so looking for them. So I decided to take a look around the basement real quick. A minute later, I find the cat curled up underneath the basement steps looking stressed and disgruntled. I called Kyle up a minute later so that I could tell him the good news. When I called him, he was still sounding like an absolute train wreck, and apparently he went so far as to tell everyone within a 4-house vicinity to keep an eye out for his cat, including some random people at the park. Kyle means well, but he's one of those guys you expect to see a story about on r/stories about Kevin someday. And then he said, "I had to spread the word somehow after somebody let my cat out." Staring the cat right in the face, I asked, "Are you sure you checked everywhere, Kyle?" "Yeah, I will literally bet you a month's worth of rent that she's not in that house." "You're that confident, huh?" "Yeah." Petty revenge activated. Now, this was kind of mean since I was terrorizing a distraught pet owner, but he pissed me off a bit when he accused me of losing his cat with no proof whatsoever, so I decided to follow it up with, "You're on." A few seconds later, "I found her. How would you like to pay for that?" "What?" "Cat's name was under the basement steps, you dumb idiot. She was never lost." Man, the reaction he had when I told him that was a mix of relief, happiness and then irritation when he just realized he got hustled a month's worth of rent. Nevertheless, he does not hold a grudge against me for it. Though, since then, whenever he's asked where the cat is, I always say, "Did you check the basement steps?" And yeah, ripe stars, that is how you can get sort of petty revenge on a stupid roommate. Either way, the next one is titled, "I Got Towing Revenge." There are 2 prongs to this revenge, so bear with me. I had just moved into a new apartment complex. According to the lease, reserved parking was available and all such spots were clearly marked reserved. Fine, I work nights, I got home at 5:30 AM, pull into a spot definitely, without any reserved markings. I wake up at 2 PM, my dad wants to meet me for lunch. Cool. Except my car is gone. I go to the leasing office and yep, it was towed. It turns out it was a numbered spot, but the reserved sign was missing. The towing company argued that all numbered spots are reserved, the tow is legal. I showed them the lease agreement where it specifically said that all such spots would be marked reserved. It was even in quotes. Well, I need my car. So yeah, lunch was shot. My dad is the one who drove me to the impound. I pay, but immediately go home and charge back. I submit photos of the spot, the lease agreement, everything, bank sides with me. I get my money back, not done with the towing company. I also called the city, found the department that handles parking enforcement. I submitted the same photos to them along with my explanation. They also agree with me and levy a fine against the tow company. I get a small portion of that, would have also got my money back here if I hadn't already. I'm not done yet though, remember I mentioned I work nights? Well, I work as a mobile security guard in addition to escorting jewelry moves, responding to alarms and escorting ATM technicians to high-risk sites, since we are supposed to check various businesses that pay for nightly checks. Most want door or vagrant checks, but some want parking enforcement checks. Well, not gonna put my work at risk, so instead of something petty, I, as the supervisor, realized something. I got a monthly chance to report to each site my security suggestions. That month, every site where we do parking checks that had this company as their towers, I put in the suggestion of another company, telling them response times were better and they dealt more fairly. About half of them took my suggestion in the next 3 months. Why not? Towing companies don't charge to patrol lots, they make money off the tows, so it's cost-free. All told, I cost the towing company 4 apartment complexes, 3 paid lots and 2 business complexes worth of lots. But also, there was another person I needed my revenge against now too, the resident who had me towed. See, my towing receipt had resident request listed. I followed up on those details. It seems they work nights too. Came home at 9:30 when the lot was virtually empty. I was in their spot, and now if it was a repeated problem or if there was no other spots, fine, but calling for a tow when literally the spot right next to it was open was a dick move when it was the first time. So I watched the car for a month or so, learned when it was gone and when it was there. It seems it stayed in the spot 2 days straight, Wednesday and Thursday, guessing days off. Well, it was tag renewal time for me. The move messed up the process and the year sticker got mailed to the wrong address. I went into the DMV and explained, got a new sticker, etc. They accidentally gave me a month sticker as well. I put the year sticker on my car and waited until Wednesday. Wednesday, I put the month sticker over theirs and now their plate said they expired in April instead of October. Then I pointed out to the towing company's patrol guy the plate was expired. They did as the contract says, put a 24-hour warning sticker on it. Well, now it was a crapshoot. Would they run errands before the 24 hours was up? Turns out no. The next day, the tow guy towed the vehicle while I sat nearby and watched, laughing to myself. No idea how that one resolved itself, what with the sticker I put on it not being valid and the car was not expired. But the tow company had no way to know that, not even sure what the law says about that one. I just know the hassle and inconvenience they had caused me had been repaid in full and the tow company had been repaid plus some. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would just like to remind you, we got a new feature here on YouTube where you can click the join button, which is situated right next to the subscribe button on my channel. However, it might only be visible either on desktop or in a browser. So if you join my channel membership, you will get access to exclusive emojis, badges next to your name and exclusive videos. Please feel free to check it out. How to properly quit a job. So, Ripe and Ripe family, as I said on one of Ripe's more recent videos, I am posting the story of the events leading up to and me actually quitting my job. It's not any sort of revenge yet unless my old boss acts on what I personally think should be done, but who knows if he will do that. So first a little backstory about me. I'm a veteran and then after getting out of the military immediately went into defense contracting, decided I wasn't getting paid enough to almost get blown up on a weekly basis and shot at, so I came back to the States. I waited about 5 months to start another job to decompress and such, and then jumped into my first true civilian job. And even though all this stuff happened, I am still very thankful to my old boss for taking me on for this job and letting me learn about being an electrician. This is not complaining about him, but about the people I worked with in the field. So the job, installing generators, started off alright. The first few days was just doing manual labor, like laying a concrete pad and putting up PVC pipes to run wire through. Then, about a week into the job, I was allowed, under close supervision, to actually wire up a generator. We soon realized I have a knack for this type of thing, so my training quickly progressed. Then, as time went on, the guy who runs the schedule, we will call him Richard, decided the helpers needed to be rotated around the LED installers to get well-rounded with working with others. No problem, then the issues started. The next week I was working with a guy, let's call him Ben. Now Ben knows his stuff when it comes to generators, there's no doubt there, but he was asking me about my history in the military and I gave him a few details. What my job was, some of the training I did and the various bases I got stationed at. And then Ben started saying I was lying, I didn't do all that because a cop in the Air Force doesn't need to shoot an M4, doesn't need to do any special training such and such. So I stopped defending myself and just let him go on because I have nothing to prove to him. Well, later on as we are working, he decides he likes working with me because I get my job done right in a timely manner, unlike the other helper who was hired when I was. I'm like cool, people are starting to notice my work ethic, but he also started talking crap about every other LED installer. It was then that I realized I would rather not work with him at all. I don't want to be sucked into all the workplace drama and the pettiness. So I dealt with him for a few weeks and then I started working with a guy we will call Mike. Now, I really like Mike. I don't have much to say about him other than he is a bit cocky, but he knows absolutely everything about this job and taught me a lot. And we are both from the same local area in the Midwest, so we got along great. He went so far as to request me to be his permanent helper since his other helper was actually about to become a LED installer. I thought all was good until they decided to switch the teams again, and then comes in, let's call him Raul. Raul is a mostly competent electrician. His big falling, which is no reason of his own, is that he speaks broken English due to immigrating a few years ago from a Latin country. but we can communicate well enough to get the job done. Our first job of the week has no electrical work, we just built a platform so an electrical box could be accessed because it was so high up due to a flood level. But the next day, oh buddy, Raul and I get to the job site, I immediately start doing my job, get the concrete pad put down, get the generator on, get it bolted down, and then go see what Raul needs. He gives me a laundry list, but I have no problems helping him because it is my job and we are waiting on the power company to pull the power to the house so we can get to work. Fast forward about 25 minutes, I've had my smoke and water break and the power was just turned off. So I start working on the panel box in the garage, separating wires and such, and Paul keeps interrupting me to go grab him stuff while he is on his phone, drinking his coffee and just being lazy. I just hold my tongue, get his stuff and get back to work. Finally, Raul decides it is time for him to start working, so he starts doing his thing, and then as I am 5 minutes away from finishing, he comes in and berates me for not being done yet and kicks me out of the panel so he could make a pre-existing hole bigger. I'm annoyed by this point, so I offer no help, but standing by in case he asks something. So how does he go about expanding this hole? Does he take a drill bit made for cutting big holes in metal, known as a cobalt? Does he take a Dremel tool to just expand it? Or does he do the most dangerous thing I've ever seen someone do in the civilian world and take a sawzall and start cutting slits into this hole? Now that is not the dangerous part, just using a sawzall, but he was using a wood blade, bends the blade like an idiot, bent it back into a roughly straight shape and then cuts up and loses traction in the hole, skating up and almost destroying the breaker bar in the panel box, which is bad news bears. And then he says F it and starts hammering these slits in. He is happy with the size and then proceeds to shove a threaded PVC pipe through it, meanwhile destroying the threads. It took me 20 minutes to get a lock ring and bushing on because it had no threads, and Raul put a giant washer on the panel to hide his nasty work. But not before I took a picture. It was then I decided I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be there when he injures himself or my name to be associated with this quality of work. So that night I called Richard and sent him the pictures of the work and told him I wanna be on a different crew. He said he'll see what he can do, but I won't be moved until next week. I told him I'm not going to go to work with someone who is that unsafe, and if I didn't get moved then I will walk out of work and will continue to do that until I get moved. So I didn't work the last 2 days of that week. I quit that weekend and told the boss not to tell anyone. I wanted to quit to Richard's face. So I did something I always wanted to do. I woke up at 4:30 AM, was in work at 6:30 AM. Richard started calling me a little witch and everything, so I took off my shirt, handed it to him and walked out in an undershirt that I had taped F you to the back. Then I went into the office and told my boss the reason I quit is I didn't get paid enough to deal with that crap, gaslighted everyone I thought deserved to be gaslit, praised everyone I thought deserved to be praised, told him what I personally should be changed, shook his hand and thanked him for giving me the opportunity to work when I had no experience, and then walked out. So I am hoping some people get demoted, some promoted, and they figure out that once a good crew is formed, don't mess it up.